Welcome to the 2021 Lab Athletics Hall of Fame ceremony. My name is Tori Judds, and I am the director of the laboratory schools. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you back to campus to honor our extraordinary alumni athletes as we celebrate Lab's 125th anniversary. In October 2000, students, teachers, alums, and other members of the laboratory schools community gathered here in the newly built Kovler Gymnasium to celebrate its completion. In the audience were Jonathan Kovler, class of '63, Sally Myers Kovler, and Peter Kovler, class of '69, and other members of the family, including Father Everett Kovler, who made the lead gift to the $5 million campaign that made this building possible. In 2012, the Upper Kovler basketball gym was named in recognition of lab parent, board chair, and alum John W. Rogers, Jr., class of '76. It is only fitting that we gather here today in Kovler tonight to induct our new class into Lab Athletics Hall of Fame, established in 2019 to honor outstanding contributions to Lab's rich athletics history. As we honor the athletes of years past, let's also congratulate our student athletes of today, including this year's girls maroon tennis team, which recently won the Independent School League Championship at the Nielsen Tennis Complex in Winnetka. First-year golfers Amelia Tan and Maxine Hurst competed recently in the state finals held at the Red Tail Run Golf Club in Decatur, Illinois. Amelia ranked 28th in the state, and Maxine finished 71st. And our girls maroon volleyball team recently defeated Woodlands Academy to win the ISL championship for the first time since 2004. The Maroons finished the ISL portion of their schedule with a perfect 8-0 record. So as you can see, we are carrying on in the tradition of a strong athletics program. In keeping with that commitment, Lab hired David Ribbons as athletics director in 2003. Under Dave's leadership, a reinvigorated athletics program brought many victories to Maroon teams. The high point, perhaps, came in March 2010 when U-High qualified for the 3A Regional Boys Basketball Championship, an accomplishment never before achieved in the 106-year history of U-High boys basketball. So I am honored to welcome Dave to the stage to tell you more about Lab Athletics and the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to this year's inductees, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Tori. It's great to have everybody back together. It's been too long, 18 months apart. Classrooms different, things have changed over this time period, and it is so great to have everybody back together. One of the things that I've learned during this time away from each other is how precious those moments are when we are together. So don't take this for granted. Take the opportunity that you have to make the very most of the opportunities we have together, because that's not always been the case, and we certainly have felt that together. Lab celebrates our 125th anniversary, as Tori says, 1896. Another monumentous occasion in 1896 was the rebirth of the Olympic Games by Pierre de Coubertin. 1896 resonates with historians as a significant period of time. So it's not for us at Lab to realize that we were a part of that history as well. 28 years later, a Lab graduate swam in the pool in Paris, France, and won 2 gold medals. Think of that. I know de Coubertin visited the 1893 World's Fair. I know he was friends with Amos Alonzo Stagg. Doc Monolaw was good friends with Amos Alonzo Stagg, and our connection with the University of Chicago and the rich history and athletics there is significant, and we have to be mindful of that. William Harms, in his book, Experiencing Education, 1896 to 2012, says this: "It didn't take long, however, for the 500 girls and boys enrolled at University High to view themselves as a single school. For one thing, it was soon commonly believed that University High School was one of the most prestigious secondary schools in the Midwest, which generated a considerable amount of pride. And it did wonders for the school spirit when the U-High football team won the city championship in the fall of 1904, its first season. This achievement represented an important turning point. For several reasons, the school had been suffering from partisanship of old loyalties. Now, triumph on the gridiron was enough to bring students from the Chicago Manual Training School and the Southside Academy together under a common banner. Athletics proved their value on this occasion, and they continue to play a vital role at University High School for decades to come. So the common bond that we share, the interest we have, the families, the friendships that we have, the experiences that we have in athletics back in 1904 solidified the lab schools and was a part of that history. And that's significant because it continues today. So indeed, we gather 117 years later and continue to tell the story of athletics at Lab through the lives of our Hall of Fame members today. Welcome. So each of the presenters will be introducing the Hall of Fame members. And presenters, if you could follow the order in the program and simply make your way onto the stage at that time. The best part of this ceremonies are the stories you're about to hear. So thanks for coming.
I think that's my cue. Is that nobody else got up? Thank you, David. I want to thank my brother Jim for asking me to do his introduction. I desperately needed another opportunity to have my own paltry athletic accomplishments set in stark contrast to his. I was really looking forward to that. I mean, the decade 1968 to 1978 apparently didn't suffice in that regard. When I first heard that my taller, more handsome, but much, much, much older brother would be inducted into the Lab School Athletics Hall of Fame, I had three reactions. The first was, you have to give Dave Ribbons a lot of credit. He was the first person to say out loud the words, Lab School Athletics Hall of Fame, which initially strike you as the type of oxymoron that you would use to teach lab school students the meaning of the word oxymoron. My second thought was, what a cool honor. I mean, look at this year's recipients. An Olympic gold medalist, Rich Nair, somewhere, who I ran behind for my one unsuccessful year in track. I don't know if you remember that, Coach Droz, probably not. I wouldn't blame you. Sarah Kersey, who I watched play soccer her freshman year on the varsity team, if I remember correctly. Ty Duncan, who I heard stories about from John Rogers, and Dylan Siegel, whose name was up there for like 2 centuries or something like that. And think about the prior inductees. Marty Billingsley, who's here, who I ran behind also for my 1 year. Gabby Clark, whom I watched play tennis and score goal after goal in soccer, ably assisted by my daughter, Amy. John Rogers, he's here somewhere, my lifelong friend, who I followed to college after watching him weave his magic on the court now named after him. And Arnie Duncan, of course, whom I watched training threes at Saturday Play. I mean, these are great athletes. My third thought, which came very quickly after that second thought, was, if they're giving this award to my brother just a year or two after inducting some of those incredible athletes, and that same rapid degradation of quality of athletic achievement continues, Judy, Amy, and I are going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame within the next 3 to 5 years. So we have that to look forward to. On a more sincere note, I'm honored to present my brother an award which he richly deserves. Let me quickly give his bona fides. Jim, that means qualifications. Jim was All-State in soccer in his senior year and All-ISL. He was captain of the team and led the team in scoring. Jim, he always makes me say this, was second-team ISL basketball in his senior year. I don't want to say basketball was his weak sport, but his best move was taking the charge. I was trying to think of an analogy to describe Jim's basketball, and I would say he was like a Steve Kerr, but without a 3. How's that? Jim went on to win the Monelaw Medal his senior. He won the district tennis title twice and went downstate twice. I think once with Larry McFarland in Larry McFarland's very first year at Lab. That's pretty amazing. Jim won the Monelaw Medal, which was given in his senior year to the male athlete who combined athletic prowess with scholarship. He went on to play 2 sports at Division III Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm going to go faster. He captained both the tennis and soccer teams his senior year. He played number 2 on the tennis team for 3 straight years and was named MVP of the team and named to the All-New England soccer team his senior year. And lest you think that Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut is not a college sports powerhouse, it's not, but Trinity has won the national championship in squash 17 times. Squash, think about that for a second. Jim's involvement in sports did not end with college. In fact, it was just the beginning. After graduating B School, right down the street, he ran tennis camps for the famed tennis coach Nick Bollettieri every summer and vacation in college, and often took me along, and my job was to wash Nick's car. I did a good job of that. After B School, he began a long career in sports marketing. He went to New Balance, where he introduced the first sneaker ever to retail for $100. True story. Avia, another shoe company, which became part of Reebok, Prince tennis rackets, Converse, where he was VP of marketing and sponsored John Rogers' Slow and Steady Championship 3-on-3 basketball team. He was then CEO of Crunch Fitness, which he sold to Bally, where John Rogers was on the board. And now he runs his own chain of gyms in home fitness. And I think, Jim, that maybe you can get John to have Nike buy home. Good idea I just came up with. To say sports are in Jim's blood would be an understatement. This is the most sincere part, and true. Growing up, I idolized my brother and basked in the glow of his achievements. I followed him around like a puppy dog. I was a ball boy at all the soccer games. I traveled to all the basketball games, even Elgin Academy, and watched him act like John McEnroe on the tennis court. And believe me, he acted like John McEnroe on the tennis court. Larry, is that a fair statement? Yeah, okay. So this is a big day for me, too. Thanks for allowing me to bask in your glow a little longer. I know Judy feels the same way. Our sister, my twin sister, Judy's here somewhere. Yeah, there. I know she feels the same way I do and Jim does. We're sorry our mom and dad aren't here to see this. They would have been very proud. Dad was a lab grad with straight A's in phys ed, that is, and that's true, just phys ed. And he very much enjoyed watching Jimmy play all of the sports, even the tennis. Congrats, Jim. We all still love and idolize you. You're not the athlete you once were. I'm now in better shape than you. But you are still all one could ask for in a Lab School Athletics Hall of Fame member and brother.
That's going to be a tough act to follow. There's no question about that, but I'm going to do my best. I think it's important to know Bob weaved a few things in there that are completely true. Bobby and Judy, I think Bob had a 4.0 here. Judy had a 3.8. I grinded away for a 3.1. And I'll never forget, I had Miss McCarthy in English and we had to do a number of essays. I remember Judy, we didn't have, autocorrect spelling back then or anything. Judy would, 6 years behind me, correct all my papers before I handed them in. Bobby helped me through Mr. Benson's science course. I had a friend, Randy Gottschalk. We got caught. He was stealing off my test. I was not cheating off of his. It got ripped up, and we both took Fs. Bobby scored one of the highest scores ever in Mr. Benson's class over 20, 30 years. So this is sort of weaving together that I'm not the only one who's accomplished here. My brother and sister were tremendous supporters of Chicago, the lab, the university, and I played my role more on the sports side. Coach Ribbons, Director Ribbons, thank you for organizing this. What a great tradition, longevity, tradition, continuity. It's just a great, great thing to put together. I want to thank my brother again for digging out after 50 years my accomplishments, and I think sending them, nominating me, sending them to John, who's on the committee, and Dave. They probably had to research a ton after 50 years too, and chose me on the Hall of Fame. It's such a great honor. Bobby mentioned my mom and dad. I got a lot of props for them. Back then, they wanted me out of the house, so they sent me to Nick Bollettieri's tennis camp as a kid in Wisconsin. I played club soccer. I went to Ray Meyer's basketball camp. I was just out of the house, and they were just trying to get me out of their hair and stop teasing Bobby and Judy all the time. And I loved it. I just spent all my time doing it, and I was able to get good in three things. I had a great childhood living in South Shore. My parents moved to Hyde Park eventually. I was a camper at Zarvy's Day Camp, who was the athletic director back then in Jackson Park. I had Sandy Padillac as my soccer and basketball coach, and I'd help him clean pools in the summer. As I said, we were so much part of the South Shore community. I had great teammates in all three sports. Senior year, Coach McFarland was in his first year here, and we went downstate. I won a round. I lost to the winner of the state tournament, but it was the highlight of my tennis career, Larry, and it was a great time. He just told me that Zarvis, the director back then, was so tight-fisted he had called my parents to pay for half the room. I did not know that 50 years later. The Solomons and the U of C go back with a great history. As Bob said, my grandfather went to the University of Chicago graduate school. My father went nursery school through MBA here. Bobby, me, Judy, our third generation, and Amy's here, our fourth generation lab. And that means the most to me, all the continuity. And we have no grandchildren yet, but we're working on fifth generation as we speak. Thank you. You're going to hold it like this. He doesn't want you. She doesn't. Oh, you do want her. I thought you didn't want him. Okay, good. Oh, my. Thank you.
I'm Ron Droz, speaking for Richard tonight, and as long as we got to tell a Bill Zarvis story, I need to add one too. He was kind of tight, and I remember my first year here, my carbon paper was going bad, so I went into Bill's office. Bill, can I have some fresh carbon paper? And he had a big box, but he pulled out 4 sheets and said, if you wear this out, come back for more. So probably the room deal is true. And Dave, it's great to be back. I've been back in Chicago for 30 hours from the Villages, Florida, and I've had time with athletes and parents of kids I coached, and it's bringing back some of the best years of my 16 years here. It's wonderful to see all the folks that I had time with. It's just a great moment. Richard and I look back at a relationship that is just a year shy of 50. And as I look at this crowd, all that really means is that Richard's old and I'm really old. In 1972, the fall in September, Richard was an incoming freshman, and I was a green as could be Northwestern graduate beginning my career as a teacher and coach. To say we learned a lot from each other in those 4 years working together almost daily during the school year would be an understatement. After signing my contract with Lab, during that summer, Bill and I had a conference. And during that conference, one of the things he said was, I would like you to resurrect cross country, which has been dead for 9 years, and bring the track and field team, which has been in the bottom half of the ISL, back to the top, where it was for most of the 50s and the early 60s. Gee, Bill, not asking too much for a guy who's never been truly taught or coached a day in his life. But his next sentence is why Richard and I are here tonight. Bill said, those of us here in the PE department think there are 2 incoming boys that you can build a team around. Their names are Jimmy Bruce and Richard Nair. Jimmy is the fastest kid we've seen in years, and Richard has great endurance and loves to run. Bill's wish and prophetic statement about those 2 boys all came through in the best way possible. Richard took advantage of the Hyde Park running community, and during the summer he was tagging along with mostly adults on runs through Jackson Park and along Lakeshore Drive. Somehow he learned early on that to really develop himself, he needed to be around like-minded people who would push him in a positive way. Richard has a passion for running. It was where he found himself. Sometime during the first cross-country season, I asked Richard, what was he willing to do to succeed? He immediately responded, whatever it takes. In conversations with people, we hear their words, but we feel their attitude. I knew Richard was the real thing, even for a 14-year-old. Richard had the U-High mile record for 41 years and is still 3rd on the all-time list. After I heard that his record got broken, I often thought, if he got a more seasoned coach instead of a rookie, would he have run a time that would have never been broken? We'll never know. He was the ISL mile champion 4 times, just beating out a senior teammate who wanted so badly to get an ISL championship in the final race of his high school career. Richard put me in an awkward spot, having to share his joy and console Barry Harrison. They don't teach you how to do that in college at the same time. His 4th place in the state meet was his finest race of his high school career. It featured a blanket finish in which the first 4 runners were all within 0.5 of a second of each other. After Lab, Richard went to Grinnell College for a year. There he was awarded the most valuable track and field athlete by the track coach, and by entirely separate committee, he was awarded the most valuable athlete at Grinnell. It's quite an accomplishment for a freshman. Richard gave up his big fish in a small pond position and went to Wisconsin, at Madison, Wisconsin, and earned 3 varsity letters. And that whole time, Wisconsin was a powerhouse in Midwestern running. The discipline involved in running helped develop Richard's character, and he knew he had to give something back to the sport which had given him so much. He gave back in 2 major ways. First, he worked his way up the ladder as a track and field official and earned the title Senior Track and Field Official, which is the highest level given in the United States. He's officiated at Stagg Field Sunday afternoon all-comers meets, all the way up to and including national championships. If they needed him at the Olympics, he's qualified for that too. The second way he gave was Richard and a couple friends realized that there was no summer track and field program on the south side of Chicago. So they started the Chicago Track Club 13 years ago, and it's still going strong. From June through September, if you drive along Stony, I guess, to the south of the museum and see a horde of kids running, Richard's there guiding them. Volunteering doesn't pay much, so Richard started his own construction company in Hyde Park about 40 years ago, and I'm pretty sure he's probably worked on some places that you folks call home. I'm so happy that Richard's exceptional talent and desire to give something back to the sport and community were deemed sufficient for his election to the Lab Hall of Fame. Richard, come get your award.
Thank you, Ron. Okay. Thank you. Thank you to Ron Droz. So people probably don't know where I came from when I came to Lab, but I came to Lab when I was about 12, and it was sort of like coming from Mars. I had been a military brat, traveling every year or two all over the world with my family and my father, and our first time we ever came back to the States was in Chicago. My dad quit working for the feds in the military and worked for University of Chicago as a alumni director, and my brother and I went to the lab school. Here I was, a 12-year-old, hadn't really done much except move a lot and change schools, and was sort of looking for some way of defining myself, as Ron mentioned, and I met Zeus Preckwinkle, ex-husband of Tony, and Ted Hayden first, before I met Ron. And the University of Chicago Track Club took me in, and I started running with them for 2 years before, or a year and a half before I met Ron. I met Ron the year Nike was formed. So 1972 was a famous year, and the waffle shoes were invented in 1972, and Ron started his career here at Lab School. And so I started running all school year with Ron, and then summers I ran with UCTC. When I was 15, I had been running with people 10 to 15 years my age, including some serious distance runners and people like Rick Walhutter, who took the bronze in the Montreal Olympics. And we used to go on very long runs. So when I was 15, Ted Hayden asked if I would run on the national junior team. 30K, which was 18.7 miles. It was a race. At 15, I actually won the junior race, and I also established a national record running a little over 6 minutes a mile at that point. And the rest was pretty much history. I represented the lab school. I was really proud to be a runner for the lab school. I ran every single quarter because we were on a quarter system. I'm not sure if you're still on a quarter system or not. And it's interesting to be in this building because I've never been in here before. This is the new addition to Sunny Gym, which we're all familiar with. You used to swim in the pool where you used to coach. I remember being injured a couple times, and they tried to turn me into a swimmer momentarily, and I would always be last. So, you know, everybody's got their sports. So in that picture, which is odd to see, first of all, a full-length picture of yourself, it's always startling. I'm running on the old clay track at the field house. So that's the old Henry Crown Fieldhouse, which now has 2 stories and is completely modernized. Back in the day, they had a clay track in there, and it was only 1 story tall. And the story is, speaking of Amos Alonzo Stagg well, he became a famous football coach, as you well know, the Monsters of the Midway. And the university asked Alonzo, well, if we build you a field house, do you have any requirements? And he said, yes. Build the ceiling so tall that no kicker can actually touch the ceiling with a ball. And that's why, to this day, if you go by the University of Chicago Henry Crown Fieldhouse, it's an immense building, very tall, but now they've built 2 floors. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you very much for this. This is very meaningful. I went to Grinnell briefly, and as Ron said, I was a big fish in a small pond, and I've never been that way. So I ended up going to Wisconsin as a walk-on. I made the team, I lettered, I ran for Dan McClyman, who's one of my mentors. Ron is one of my mentors, and actually Edward Hayden was one of my mentors too, who actually went, by the way, to University of Chicago High School. He was, I think, given an award as one of the, they have an award at Lab School for one of the famous, you know, members of the school. So anyway, so to this day, we're still coaching. We're trying to get kids out of different neighborhoods, out of the line of fire, and it's an anti-violence social justice program called Chicago Track Club. We're on Facebook. We're still coaching, I'm still working, and pursuing a film career, so that's about it. Try to keep busy, and I appreciate this. Thank you very much. It's wonderful, David, that you do this and that the Lab School perpetuates this. Thank you.
Two tough acts to follow. For all of my colleagues who are out there, I do want to make one thing clear. I did not coach Miss Metz, or what was it? Anyhow, I'm here tonight to introduce the candidate for Hall of Fame, Dylan Siegler. Dylan was a coach's dream. She was a hard worker, an inspiration to her teammates. She didn't like to lose, but would be gracious if she did or her team did. She swam for 4 years. She played soccer for 4 years. For those of you who aren't familiar with Sunny Gym, there is a pool there. It was built in 1932, I believe, and that's where Dylan spent her swimming career. 20 yards, state-of-the-art in 1932. In spite of that, Dylan was a very accomplished swimmer. Swimming is one of the hardest sports to qualify for state in the state of Illinois. It still is only one class. So all schools are in the same class. Dylan came very close her senior year. We were a smidgen short, but she got through it and went on to swim at Yale. The one thing I do remember was that she had so many records. If you look at the record boards there, I don't know who changes those, but we had, and I think I have a couple here. We have these pieces that went on the board in Sunny Gym. And every time she broke a record, you would have to change it. I kept running out of D's and S's. So she made my life a little harder that way. She also played soccer for 4 years, and those of you who are familiar with the wonderful facility we have now, we didn't have that then. We played on what we called the Mudway, because in the spring in Chicago it rains, and the Midway fills up. Dylan made 32 saves in one contest out on the Midway. It shows you that our defense needed a little work. And she came out looking, I know I'm going to date myself on this one, but
I'm not sure how many of you remember the science fiction show that was on, Flash Gordon. Well, there was a group of individuals called the Claymen that would come out of the caves, and after a soccer game on the Midway, that's what our team looked like. So it's with great honor and a privilege of mine to give this award to Dylan, who, again, was a wonderful person and still is, hasn't moved too far from her childhood home. She now works for the University of Chicago, and it's just a pleasure to be here. Dylan.
You're welcome. Debbie.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here and to be with all of you wonderful inductees. And I just, have been thrilled since learning about this honor from you, Dave, and to be part of this process. And Mac, thank you so much. Thank you for your wonderful words. Thank you for, he said I can keep these, which I'm really excited about. Not sure where they'll go, but you were such a dedicated teacher and mentor and coach. Really, I think of during my 13 years at Lab, because I was a lifer here. And you were always the perfect combination as a coach of, knowledgeable and instructive while also really instilling in your athletes a sense of fun, a sense of commitment, and always giving us opportunities for growth. There were times when I was certainly succeeding and, obviously breaking records and things, but there were always more things that I could do. And I remember one time, down in that 20-yard pool, I was going against my big rival from St. Ignatius, Maria Montalbano, and you taped a picture of her at the end of the lane so that, every time I was going towards that picture, I was thinking about her. And there was some great race, I think it was either individual or relay, where I was up against her and it was neck on neck, and then I out-touched her and it was unbelievable, and we all kind of erupted. It was very fun, but you were always motivating us, and under your leadership I feel like I grew as a person, I grew as a leader, not just an athlete. And thank you for all the time that you devoted to me. Swimming, soccer, you also were getting up with us at 5:30 in the morning for morning practices, and nobody wanted to be there, but thank you for all of your time. During my 4 years as a varsity athlete at Lab, I honed several of my natural talents, and one of these is quite familiar to my friends and family who are here, which is my ability to be very, very loud. And, for example, I probably don't need this mic, but while supporting my teammates and fellow swimmers, you would always go up and down the pool just shouting at the top of your lungs. You always had to make sure that in the pool they could hear you and they knew that you were there cheering them on. And as a goalie, I had the whole field as my vantage point. And, I became a goalie because I'd been a defender for about 2 weeks as a freshman, and then the varsity goalie's hand got stepped on. So they said, well, you're pretty tall, you're a good athlete, how about you be the goalie? So as a freshman, I was the goalie, and I just kind of jumped in, and I could see the field, and I loved just shouting to, my teammates and kind of telling them, oh, watch out, this is coming, that's coming. So I, really used one of these talents. In addition to my ability to project, I was also born with natural athletic abilities for which I do feel very, very grateful. And, you know, when I began swimming competitively at the age of 8, this is true, we happened to be in Charlottesville, Virginia that year, it was already apparent that I had some natural ability. And, you know, what I quickly realized, though, is that to maximize those natural talents, I had to commit to rigorous training. I had to be somebody who was willing to put the work in. And I certainly, you know, found that here, I mean, there were definitely times, most of the time I was really committed to rigorous training here with Mac, but there were certainly times where Mac would say to us, you know, you're having a little too much fun, you know, because we loved to we'd be in the center lane and we'd goof around and things like that. But, you know, I spent by choice several summers where I was swimming 15,000 meters a day. And that was by choice. And, you know, and waking up, as I'd said, at 5:30 in the morning for double swim practice, and I am not a morning person. So, you know, my soccer career, you know, I loved and hated being a goalie. I really did. I loved it and I hated it. It was both thrilling and terrifying because you knew that, you know, the entire team was counting on you. You know, I threw myself every which direction across that 192 square foot goal, you know, 24 by 8. And Mac, you know, he did attest to that, but I was always sort of covered in mud and going in every direction and just giving it my absolute all. In soccer, you know, we didn't always win. I'd say by my maybe junior and senior seasons, we had a winning record, but, you know, that didn't matter. Whatever sport I was doing, I knew I had natural talents, and because of that, not despite it, I knew I needed to work extra hard because of what I had been given. When I was competing for lab, both those with natural talent, those who worked hard, and those with both talent and dedication could compete on our teams here. And I was honored to participate on those lab teams that weren't just focused on winning, but were focused on inclusivity and letting those who wanted to join and those who made the commitment participate. And that was a really big deal and something that was so important for me to be a part of in both swimming and soccer. It's an honor to be here among so many talented and incredible athletes, and those being inducted today and those who are already members of the Lab Athletics Hall of Fame. And thank you for, you know, for getting this off the ground. It's wonderful. I want to thank my parents who are here for coming to so many meets and for in my games during high school for cheering me on, and, you know, my dad for always pushing me to do just a little bit better and drop my time just a little bit more. And my sister Allison was always a dedicated swimmer and soccer teammate alongside me and worked harder than anyone. She's certainly our family's best athlete today as a marathon runner and long distance swimmer. My nieces are also here today. I know one of them won't follow in my footsteps. And the other one, I'm still hopeful that she will embrace her natural athletic talents, and she knows who she is. And you'll see her coming up here, I think. And I want to thank my girlfriend Cindy for supporting me in everything I do. And thank you to all of you, Tori, for hosting us here. And I see Debbie, I think, there she is, my dear friend Debbie, for nominating me for this award. I'm really, and for the committee and the selection committee, I'm very honored, and our dear friend Kira as well. These are folks we have known since we were 5, 6, 7, and all went to lab together for years and grew up on Blackstone together, where many of us still live, to tell you the truth. So thank you for this honor. I am deeply grateful to be here. Thank you.
I think I need a ladder. Welcome, everybody. My name is Joyce Gratis. Most of you know me as Joyce Stiles, as those were the days when I was coaching most of you that are out in the audience. It is with my deep, deep pleasure tonight to introduce our inductee, Ty Duncan. So, in preparing for her speech, I was thinking back, and as I look back, it's hard for me to think in 1995, I was coaching Ty She was playing right field for the middle school baseball, co-ed baseball team. Okay? I don't know if she remembers that. Do you remember that? Okay. And we were playing baseball on Lakeshore Drive and 47th Street in those days. And Ty represented the only female on the team of the co-ed. Again, it was a co-ed baseball team, but it was an all-boys team at the time. And I feel like she stood out as an athlete then. And I knew then, as a young coach myself, that she was going to be something special. So it was just something that as I look back, I think, wow, there we go. So as Ty moved to high school, knowing that she was going to be something special, she was able to focus on two sports, volleyball and basketball, which both I coached her at the varsity level, which was an experience. We had so many good times, which I don't have enough time to talk about, all our bus rides and our tournaments and all of our fun times. But with her determination and her skill level, she was able to dominate both of those sports. Not many girls are able to compete in girls volleyball and girls basketball as they're back-to-back seasons, and they run pretty much from August to February. So even to this day, we still do not have athletes that are competing in those two particular sports. Something special again. Ty was something special. I feel like Ty had a wonderful backbone of support from home. I want to mention this in honor, with great fondness, her late mother and father. Ty's parents attended every game and cheered on her at every contest. I'm sure they're both looking down on us tonight and smiling pride and cheering with her Ty as she's receiving this award. I'm also sure Ty's mother would have loved to be here and bake lemon squares for us, as she really loved doing that for our volleyball games and all of the occasions. So kisses to both of them. Some career highlights that I'd like to mention. So in volleyball, Ty was our middle blocker and outside hitter. She always was a force to be reckoned with at the net. As a senior, Ty was our team captain. She led the team at their Luther East tournament, all selection. She was all conference player, and she earned the Coaches Award. Which here, the Coaches Award, in case you're unfamiliar with that, it's an award that the coach then at the end of the season bases it on what player stands out in the coach's eyes, not just on their play on the court, but the overall leadership and the overall commitment to the team, as well as their play on the court. So she was awarded the Coaches Award for that senior year. In basketball, which I coached her again, Ty dominated in the paint. Her ability to box out and rebound was outstanding. Ty scored 805 career points for U High, which at the time was the career high in her senior year. She was our team captain, all-tournament player at our Ridgewood tournament, and she also won she finished in the state regional three-point championship. So that was really cool because she was a center. So just imagine that. I bring her to the state regional three-point contest, and there's all these little guards. And then, we walk in, and there's me, who they think I'm the player, and she's the coach. And she lines up next to the rack, and she's shooting threes, and she won the regional that year. So it was pretty cool. So that was another thing. Let's see. She was also all-conference senior year, first team, which we got to emphasize the first team here. And again, not to minimize it, but the Coaches Award again. So she was my Coaches Award for both sports. Very cool. I guess I had a favorite. After U High, Ty was able to compete in both of those sports at Grinnell College at Iowa. She played 4 years of college basketball, and she also played a year of volleyball. She ended up starting 3 years of basketball and was co-captain her senior year. Ty was also, this is her second time being inducted into a Hall of Fame, because she was also inducted into the Grinnell Hall of Fame in 2018. So this is round 2 for her. And while doing all of this, she gets a law degree, so go figure. Okay, enough about the stats. So let's look at Ty's dedication. Who is she now? And how did Lab evolve her into the person that she is? Ty is a dedicated alum who cares about athletics and the athletics here at Lab. Ty returned to give back to the program by coaching the middle school 7th grade, which coaching here, we're always looking for coaches, and we're definitely always looking for players that come back and want to give back to our students because they understand the chemistry of our athletes and how the academic pressures are, as well as being an athlete here at Lab. So she did that. She also came back and spent 5 years coaching our varsity girls basketball team. So that was really, with that, I was very proud of her, because it's nice to see your player come back and coach. It's nice to see them give back to the program. And that in itself speaks highly of who she has become and the person that she has developed into over the course of time. Let's see, I lose my notes on that. Her leadership and her skill, athletic talents, she was able to use to teach now current players and newer players about basketball and how it relates to life. And I think she used basketball to develop her life skills, and I think then she was able to give it to others, which makes me just feel so warm inside that she's able to do that and carry on that tradition. She coached, there's a couple other things that she did, I'll just throw them out, they're just little things. But she coached AAU travel, she did flow basketball, she works with youth sports as an executive director of positive coaching for the Alliance. She also likes to see kids receive good coaching, and she wants to help them. She wants to help disadvantaged kids, she wants to help kids learn what coaching should look like, what being on a team should look like, and what being an athlete should look like. I am very proud of Ty for taking on the responsibility of coaching. When she began coaching, she began to be a teacher of the game. Through teaching and coaching, Ty shows others how much she loves the game and how to be an athlete for life. And I feel like that says it all for who she is and who she's become from the start of the 7th grade co-ed middle school basketball or baseball team. A couple career highlights that I'll just mention, and then I'll get off of here because I can ramble and they'll probably get the hook. Career highlights that I'll mention for her. Throughout the course of Ty's career, she has worked with U-High alum John Rogers Jr. at Ariel. She maintained some partnerships with WNBA, the Sky, University of Chicago, and Princeton University, working closely with summer interns who mainly were college athletes. After leaving Ariel, Ty worked in youth sports. Again, as mentioned above, she was executive director of positive coaching for the Alliance of Chicago. Ty also began to provide legal counsel for the adult basketball fitness startup company called Swiss House, to which she is currently a member and ambassador. Ty works for Cresco Labs in a role leading corporate community with one of the most largest vertically integrated multi-sport cannabis operations. I'll say that in a quick sentence. Within this role, Ty also serves as coach. She currently is coaching a corporate league basketball team called Puff Puff Basketball. I'm not sure where that name comes from, but you'll have to ask her about that. Again, she's still coaching and giving back to the sport. Ty is a remarkable example of who we would like our athletes to become. Ty has used sports to drive her in life. Ty is inspiring the Lab students with all that she has accomplished, as well as all her commitment to the Lab School and our athletic program. It is with my great honor to recognize her and induct her into the U-High Hall of Fame. Thank you. Let me get out of your way.
This is very, very delicate. Not holding it up. Wow, thank you. Already crying, just got started. I had all these remarks prepared, but I hadn't heard yours yet. And it just means a lot to be here with so many family and friends and to hear my coach, who was the first person who taught me what it could be to be an athlete who has fun, who does well in school, who feels cared for. You did that. 6 out of my 8 seasons at Lab were playing for you. So I also was coached by Mike Moses and Lisa Miller, and I'm just grateful for knowing them still, talking to them still, and those relationships endure, and it's been several years since I was last playing here. You know, I was terrible at baseball, so thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it. But we did have so many fond memories, and One of them that's not so fun is preseason volleyball, because someone, we mentioned the Midway earlier, loved the hill sprints in the dead of summer heat on the Midway. And she taught us that if we complained about running, we had to run more. So what we learned to do was say, thank you, coach, for the opportunity to get better. And we said it with a very angry tone, but she said it was okay, so we didn't have to run anymore. I actually ran a lot more in those 4 years than I've run in any of the years since. So thanks for that. Did anyone watch the Chicago Sky game last night? I need more hands. I need more hands next time. I felt so excited to be in that room, in that arena, because it was women's basketball at its finest. And I got to be part of that because I'm an athlete, and it started here. And the best part of the game was not just the amazing play, but it was seeing so many friends that came from basketball, and that this community is what has made me. Volleyball was a blast, and I had a lot of fun playing it in college. And I came back, I remember this fondly, came back to, over Thanksgiving break, to one of, always will be Styles to me, one of Styles' practices. And she's like, you learn how to pass in school? And I was like, yeah, finally I know how to pass. You don't have to hide me anymore in the back. So the WNBA is also important to me because when I started playing, it didn't exist. So the first woman I ever saw play basketball was actually Arnie Duncan's sister, Sarah Duncan. She was here and in the gym over in Sunny, because I didn't have this. Of course, y'all waited till I immediately graduated to build it. Thank you. Which happened at Grinnell also, fellow Grinnellian over there, and my teammate Lauren is also here from college. Playing in that old gym, being with such awesome people, and being able to see for the first time in that early age, a tall woman dominating, just getting shots up, I got excited about what's possible for me. And a few years after I saw Sarah playing over there, Lab was lucky enough to get Craig Robinson to come and coach our boys' basketball team. He was an old family friend, and he let me stick around for the boys' practices. I got to shoot, whenever I could get some shots up in between their drills. I could play if you need an extra player, and that helped me to see, wow, I could really be getting better and trying harder and learning more from different people. I also learned how to shoot more threes then, which it's funny that you mentioned the regional shootout, because every year I went to regionals, and I was still not allowed to shoot in games because if you miss, who will rebound? So appreciate it. So I have a lot of fond memories from Lab, and they're not really about our scores or the records. I couldn't tell you because mostly they probably weren't great records, but they were of those bus rides and those van rides, and they were of going down after the game and looking to see what stars you'd put on. So Coach Styles had these basketball and volleyball cutouts that she had hand drawn and hand cut out. And she would put stars on them in different buckets. Some of them were for hustle and other things, for rebounding. And just watching our basketballs and volleyballs fill up with our accomplishments, we would joke, does she have any friends? She spends all of her time with us. And we met some of them. We knew you had some. We figured it out later. But what was important was that we felt like we were all that mattered. We were the most important thing. When you were with us, we felt we were the most important thing. And that's what I took into coaching with me as well. You mentioned Flow Basketball Academy. Margaret Sender gave me a chance to coach at that high level as well. Dave Ribbons, when I was coaching here. I spent 11 seasons coaching girls basketball, and it's one of my greatest achievements are because I got to be around other young girls trying to figure out their place in the world, how to make their big bodies or other sized bodies do things that made them proud, how to learn all the life skills that we know come from youth sports. And I feel most at peace in a gym to this day because of the experiences I had in high school and going on to play at Grinnell College and the amazing friends I've met. My high school teammates and I still have an active group text to this day. I talked to them just yesterday. That happened because of sport and because of this amazing environment. So Lab, it's a special place. It's a very weird place, but it's very special. It's where I developed a love of learning, where I learned I could be a bunch of different things. I could be tall and dorky, play oboe, and go to band camp, do photojournalism, then get to go into the gym, sweat it out, laugh, and run hard, and play with my friends. It's also why I came back to coach here, trying to continue to inspire that excitement around the game and what it could mean to be a lifelong athlete. When I was coaching here, I met actually a lifelong friend and mentor, John Rogers. And because of sport, because of Lab, I was able to get an opportunity to work for one of the best philanthropists and businessmen in the city and probably in the country. And that all came because of this place, where I started here when I was 3 years old and got to learn all these many years what a beautiful environment it is to be here. I'm grateful to the committee, the selection committee. Thank you so much for choosing me. For my friends and family who are here today, family is everything. And as Coach mentioned, my parents couldn't be here. They passed away in 2018, but they loved this school, and they sacrificed for me to be here. It was important to them that I was in this environment, and I understand why now. The best part of being an athlete is the people, and there are so many important ones in my life, and also who are here today. My teammates from high school, from college, all the friends I met here and in the many years since. All the fellow inductees, and it's amazing to be among all these people from this year and the last 2 years who have made a huge impact on the school, the programs, and the world. The lab leadership, current and past. When I was in school here, our director was Lucinda Katz, and Karen Duncan was our athletic director. I got to see 2 women be strong and advocate for us every day. And my coaches, Joyce Gratis, always Styles to me, Mike Moses, Lisa Miller, my volleyball and basketball teammates, my friends, and my teachers, 2 of whom are here today. My kindergarten teacher, I don't know if she's still here, Maureen Ellis, and Spike Wilson, my 2nd grade teacher. So the fact that you guys are still here and I still talk to you, it brings so much joy to my life. And lastly, to my parents who did not miss games and who would drive in all the traffic to Elgin. Why do we play such far schools? Elgin, North Shore Country Day School, Lake Forest Academy. And they came and sat on those hard bleachers and cheered for not just me, but for everyone, because they knew the power of team and of sport. Thank you all so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, good evening, everyone. The last inductee, I am so thrilled to introduce her. I had the honor and privilege of coaching Sarah Kersey in both cross country and track and field. Sarah was an outstanding runner in both sports. Her accomplishments include all-conference all 4 years, Illinois High School Association all-state honors in both the 1,600 meters and 3,200 meters her junior and senior years, finishing 6th in the 3,200 meter her senior year. Sarah also ran in the Illinois High School Association cross-country state meet all 4 years. She won the ISL Runner of the Year and led her team to the conference championship her senior year. Sarah then went on to run cross-country and track and field at Washington University. But more importantly, her contributions to the team went way beyond her outstanding ability. She led the team by example. She was always the first one who inspired and encouraged her teammates to be the best that they could be. Former teammate Sonia Bordeaux says Sarah was one of the kindest and most talented people I have had the pleasure of knowing. She was such an inspirational runner and friend. Former teammate Jordan Einhorn says, there is no doubt Sarah would be fast. Her speed was clear since the lower school mile run. But joining the team with her was the biggest treat. Her quiet inner drive was incredible to witness, all while fostering such a safe space with regard for all, regardless of their talent. My favorite personal story of Sarah was our obsession we developed with the sport of running, making a Saturday out of watching national cross-country races with a snack of Chipotle, stalking local runners, pasta dinners at state. She even believed in me, even though I certainly had no skill to offer. The greatest friend, the most caring and kindest captain, an incredible athlete, I am so proud of Sarah. Former coach Bud James says, Sarah is that 1 in a million type of young lady who a teacher and a coach has the opportunity to work with. She exhibited leadership through her quiet, unassuming way that commanded respect from her peers and from those she competed against. She had focus, talent, and a terrific personality. I knew immediately that her life success was a given. I am very proud to have had the opportunity to work with such a fine young woman. Sarah was injured her sophomore year. She had a nagging ankle injury. She still continued to come to every practice, to every home and away meet, to cheer on her teammates. Another example of her impeccable character was a situation with an athlete from another school we had at the state track and field. This young woman was struggling with her teammates. Sarah came up and asked if we could add another person to our dinner reservation. Jamie joined us for dinner. Sarah is still friends with Jamie to this day. I also want to give a special shout out to Sarah's parents, Lisa and Joe. You don't have a wonderful human being like Sarah without awesome parents. I'm getting emotional now. In my 42 years of coaching, which is a very long time, Sarah is one of the nicest, kindest human beings I've ever had the privilege of working with. It is my honor now to present Sarah Kersey with this Hall of Fame award.
Oh gosh, I gotta pull it together. It's a good thing I was wearing a mask over there. You couldn't see me crying. Thank you, Ms. Ribbons, for your introduction, for nominating me, and for everything else throughout the years. Thank you, Mr. Ribbons, and the athletic department for putting on this event and the opportunity to celebrate together today. I've enjoyed this evening so much, getting to come back to U-High for the first time since my little brother Joe graduated, and getting to learn more about U-High's rich sports history, to hear the personal stories about all the other honorees. I feel very overwhelmed and honored to be included in this group of people, many of whom I looked up to throughout my years as an athlete, people whose names were written all over the hallways or whose running records, like Miss Billingsley, I tried to chase and spent 4 years chasing. Although during my time as an athlete at U-High, most people knew me as a member of the running team, soccer was my first love. Running was definitely not something I sought out or wanted to do. In fact, I thought it was quite silly to run if you weren't chasing after a ball or trying to get faster for other sports. However, each year, like Ms. Ribbons mentioned in gym class, we had to run the mile. My gym teacher in 5th grade, Mr. James, or Coach Bud James, as many of you probably know him, happened to be the coach of the high school cross-country and track teams. And after we had to run the mile in gym class, I remember him telling me one day that I would run for his teams. I smiled, but deep down, I thought, definitely no way. Yet somehow I found myself joining the middle school cross-country and track teams under the guidance of Coach Ingalls. And I have very distinct memories of those early days in running, being so nervous before the gun went off, silently begging to God to break my leg so I wouldn't have to race. But as soon as the gun went off, all those worries went away. I wasn't the shy, quiet girl. I was confident. I liked beating the boys. I liked trying to run a bit faster each time. And then later, joining the cross-country team as a nervous freshman, the kindness and camaraderie of that senior class of girls like Sherry Fu, Aoife McMahon, and Julia Baird, to name a few, some of the most wonderful humans to walk these halls, taught me that running was fun. When you love the people around you and you get to run races with those people, for those people, you are able to endure much harder things. And very quickly, the begging to God to break my leg before a race went away, and I started to look forward to meets. I was smitten with the team aspect of cross country, of being part of something bigger than myself. I didn't have to think, I just followed along behind those girls who were like big sisters, one foot after the other. And these early experiences blossomed into 4 years running for U High, countless long runs along the lake with teammates when it was too snowy, windy, and cold to speak, early Monday morning practices at Henry Crown, pasta parties before meets, and most of all, friendship. With the support of my U High family, I was lucky enough to continue running in college for Washington University all 4 years, where I got to compete for team national championships year after year. My coach there would say, that team is a feeling, and that team felt a whole lot like my U High family. Although it's been 4 years now since I graduated from college and finished running, I continue to see the impacts. I'm currently finishing up a PhD in clinical child psychology, which sometimes feels like a really long cross-country race with a whole lot of wind and a lot like runs along the lake on the south side in February felt, something any Chicago runner knows very well. So I just want to say thank you to this community for being such a wonderful place to be a student athlete, to grow up. Thank you to all my teachers who always made a conscious effort to congratulate me after a meet, ask me how our team was doing, or teach me about the physics of running. Thank you to Mr. Ribbons for being such a kind and steady leader of the U High Athletics program, for always believing in us and our teams, and for celebrating our successes. Thank you to Mrs. Ribbons for being the best coach a teenage girl could ever have, and the perfect combination of strength and gentleness and leadership. And thank you to Mr. James, the most encouraging human being I've ever met, for seeing the confident runner in person in me well before I did, and teaching me never ever look back in a race. And thank you to Coach Mike Moses. Even though you were only my soccer coach for 2 years at U High, I loved playing for your teams, and I appreciate you encouraging me to pursue my running dreams. And most of all, thank you to my parents, who I get to share today with. Supporting kids in sports, especially those who play multiple sports year-round, is an exhausting effort. And what's pretty crazy is that I can't think of a single race I ran throughout high school that one of my parents or my little brother didn't attend. In a sea of voices cheering, I could always pick out theirs. And I've always thought that sports are one big practice for life. My coaches and teammates at U High equipped me and so many of us here today with an invaluable perspective on sports and the process that they have a deeper meaning of continued pursuit to be a better version of yourself, of ourselves tomorrow than we were today. And you helped us learn that sports, running, team championships, state meets felt so important because we made them important, but it was truly just a way for us to practice resilience and perseverance through hardship amidst the safety of a supportive family and team and the muddy course. So I'm very thankful to my athletics family at U High for instilling in me a sense of self-efficacy in my athletic endeavors, but most importantly in my life. I'm so glad I can be here to share this day and come back home. So thank you for having me. Thank you for the lessons that carry me to this day. And thank you for the memories. I'm very honored and proud to be a very, very small part of U High's athletics history. So go Maroons.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm wearing David and the last school jacket from Wisconsin. It represents about 20,000 miles at Wisconsin.
So this is extra special. It'll certainly be displayed, but my father was born and raised in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And when he was a little boy, he used to listen to the Wisconsin football games, and he would write the plays on a piece of paper that I still have to this day. So before I say closing remarks, let me just give you a brief summary of Ethel Lackey and her accomplishments. 97 years ago, she walked these halls and was an all-star swimmer. She graduated and won 2 gold medals. She graduated in June, and later in that summer in Paris, France. She set 2 world records at the time in the 100-meter freestyle and as a member of the 4x100-meter relay team. She was the first woman in the United States to break 1 minute for the 100-yard freestyle. She was selected into the USA Swimming Hall of Fame in 1969. Ethel credited her father for teaching her to swim by age 3. Lester Lackey and his daughter would swim in Lake Michigan together. Ethel Lackey competed at the Illinois Athletic Club. This was pre-Sonny Jim. Imagine that. Pre-Sonny Jim. I will give her credit for having Sonny Jim developed 5 years later in 1929. Ethel Lackey competed at the Illinois Athletic Club with famed coach Bill Bacharach, who was the head coach of the USA swimming teams in the 1924 and 1928 Olympics. Bacharach said this about Ethel Lackey, quote, "More delicate and slighter of build than her competitors, she earned her margin of superiority by perfection of the execution of the ideal American crawl stroke." In the 1924 Correlator yearbook, Ethel's profile said this about her days at Lab, quote, "Who is that tall, dignified young lady with the straight bob and the pretty blue eyes? Why, that's Ethel, U-High's own swimming champion. She also excels in other sports because, as many of you have stated tonight, she puts all that she has into anything she attempts to do." Ethel has 2 hobbies, water and writing. Ethel was involved in the music club, public speaking, field hockey, basketball, and baseball. So would you please join me in recognizing Ethel Lackey's accomplishments for U-High? So closing remarks. Hearing the stories tonight brings tears to my eyes. The impact that athletics has on all of us is significant. And it's wonderful to hear those stories. That story is important to be told. That story is important to be remembered. Today we hosted IHSA sectional girls tennis. Girls won, Lab won, 25 points. We had number 1 singles champion, number 1 doubles champion. Our second doubles finished 4th. Our second singles finished 3rd. Wonderful, right? I mean, just absolutely wonderful opportunity. And the plaque will go up in the hallway downstairs, and that's something they'll always come back and be able to walk the halls and say, I remember that day. It's significant. The education that the students receive here is top drawer, and athletics enhances that education. And that's an important part of our community because it's more than just the wins and the losses. It really is, and we live that. In true athletics fashion, tonight's event takes teamwork. So I want to say a special thanks to Michael Zarobi, Damon Cates, Catherine Smitstra, and Ramya Shah for putting on this event for us. Thank you. I'd like to thank our new director, Tori, for being here tonight. Thank you very much, Tori. Recognize my boss, Paul Biekmeyer. Paul, thanks for your support as our high school principal. Our assistant athletic director, who's at a wedding tonight, was not able to be here, Laura Gill. Would you please thank Laura? Members of our selection committee, some of who are here tonight: Susan Shapiro, Spike Wilson, Marty Billingsley, William Harms, John Rogers, Chris Harper, Rosie Rush, Daoud Talib, and Michael Zarobi. Thank you for your efforts in making this possible. Thank you to all the presenters, and congratulations to the Hall of Fame. We're done.